President Trump announces a brokered ceasefire to the Israeli-Iranian 12-day war. The Supreme Court rules the Trump administration can continue deporting illegals to any accepting nation, and Democrat infighting continues amid poor choices. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Yesterday evening, a whopping 35 minutes before we went on air for the Tony Kinnett Cast, President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world." Vice President J.D. Vance was on Fox News when the moment happened. Here was his response.
Joining us this evening, Vice President J.D. Vance. Mr. Vice President, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, thank you.
Just seconds ago, the President went to Truth Social and typed this. "It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire." Complete and total ceasefire is what he typed.
Yep.
What does that mean? How did it come about? What's the development here?
Well, we were actually working on that just as I left the White House to come over here. So that's good news that the president was able to get that across the finish line. I think what it means, Brett, is quite simple. First of all, the president, without, knock on wood, having a single American casualty, obliterated the Iranian nuclear program. We are now in a place where we weren't a week ago. A week ago, Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it. So that's a very, very big thing. Now, what that means, I think, is we have to talk to Iran and, of course, to Israel about what the future holds. Because while we have obliterated the Iranian nuclear program, our hope and our expectation is that they're not going to try to rebuild that program. And I think that's what the president is really trying to figure out here, is to build a long-term settlement here to where we can have peace in the region, where our regional allies and, of course, the American people, most importantly, can be secured, but where we can ensure that the destruction of the Iranian nuclear program that has already happened is not something they try to rebuild.
Initially, CNN, as well as a few other minor outlets, claimed that Iran had not received any kind of ceasefire proposal, according to Iranian officials. Then several other networks, both on the left and the right, ganged up on CNN and said, yes, there had been a ceasefire proposal.
Now, we're hearing incredibly optimistic views coming out of the White House as far as how long this can hold and what this is going to look like. That obviously still remains to be seen on the implementation side of this, and waiting to see if the firing does stop and if Iran and Israel do both agree to this. Because, speaking of the fluidity of the situation, it was just 24 hours ago that President Trump himself was suggesting a regime change in Iran was a possibility. And obviously right before that, having the United States strike Iran. And so, yes, there have been a lot of phone calls going back and forth. In part, this has to do with Iran's limited response earlier, where they fired on a U.S. base in Qatar, but there were no casualties. We know that they did give a heads up that they were going to be firing on U.S. bases without exactly specifying which ones. But that is the question here, is if the United States felt that it did not need to respond to the Iranian retaliation, did that create the space for this? That is what we've been hearing from administration officials. And so the question is whether or not this still holds for the next few hours.
Caitlin, I just been given word that Iran, according to a diplomat who briefed CNN, Iran has agreed to the ceasefire. So this is significant. I just want to try to learn some more information as soon as we get it about that. But if that is the case, that's incredibly significant, because that is, we were waiting. We had not heard from Iran. We had not heard from Israel. All we were going on so far has been the president's social media post, which was some 2 hours ago. So again, that is the first indication we have that Iran has agreed to this.
Sayed Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister for the Islamic Republic of Iran, gave a lot of differing statements throughout the evening, suggesting that Iran was going to comply with the ceasefire, that Iran's troops had fought bravely up until the moment of the ceasefire's beginning at 4 a.m. local time. He then suggested that Iran has no agreement or ceasefire or cessation of military operations. It's unclear at this point if there is actually any effective regime chain of command, given the severe degradation to Iran's military and civil staff under the strikes of the Israeli Air Force. Iran continued firing a couple of salvos of missiles, and it's a little bit unclear as to when exactly the Iranian ceasefire with Israel was to begin, due to, if you'll forgive me, a little bit of an ambiguous, kind of hard to understand ceasefire message from the President of the United States. So if the news is radically different by the morning because I failed to understand how the President's message was particularly worded, I apologize. The Supreme Court ruled yesterday in a 6-3 decision, with liberal justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson dissenting, that the Trump administration could deport illegal immigrants and those whose visas have been canceled to any country that accepts them, including places like, for example, South Sudan. District Court Judge Brian Murphy of Massachusetts, a Biden appointee, defied the Supreme Court order. Here's Stephen Miller in response.
Yes, this is an incredible victory, the Supreme Court win. It allows President Trump, as the law has long said, but the courts have blocked, it allows President Trump to send illegal aliens convicted of rape, murder, homicide, assault, battery, crimes against children to any country around the world that is willing to accept them. So whether that be South Sudan, or whether it be Somalia, or whether it be Ethiopia, any country in the world that is willing to accept these monsters, we can get them out of our country and be free of them forever. The only thing I have to share tonight, Sean, in a little bit of breaking news, is that the district court judge in Boston has said he's going to defy the Supreme Court's ruling. So expect fireworks tomorrow when we hold this judge accountable for refusing to obey the Supreme Court.
And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was already making headlines yesterday for curious statements regarding the president's authority on military strikes.
Donald Trump and his actions, which do not appear to be consistent with the United States Constitution, takes unilateral offensive military action without seeking the approval of the United States Congress. The use of military force, which is offensive in nature, must be approved by the House and the Senate. That's according to the Constitution. It's not optional.
And to make bad decisions worse, Hakeem Jeffries has an interesting response to whether or not he plans to encourage the House Democrats to condemn the Los Angeles riots.
How are you planning to vote on the resolution to condemn the LA riots?
I haven't seen that resolution, but obviously I disagree with the classification, which of the notion that there were riots in Los Angeles. Certainly there was unrest. Any unlawful behavior, people who assault police officers, who damage property, who break the law, they should be held accountable. We will not be lectured by extreme MAGA Republicans about questions of law and order. Are you kidding me? This group that actually supported President Trump pardoning hundreds of violent felons who brutally beat police officers in plain view in front of hundreds of millions of Americans, and then on day one, Donald Trump breaks every promise that he made to the American people to make their life better, but then he issues a blanket pardon of violent criminals who brutally beat police officers. Republicans aren't the party of law and order. They're the party of lawlessness and disorder. They're phonies. Get lost.
Meanwhile, Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania criticized AOC and other House Democrats' efforts to impeach President Trump over the Iran strikes.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the president shouldn't be impeached because he's impulsive. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, of course, no. She knows it. I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too. So it's not going anywhere, and I don't think that's helpful. And I think if you throw that term around, that actually diminishes what the severity of what impeachment is really reserved for.
Before you go, head down to the description and make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, where hopefully we'll be able to clear up a little of this ceasefire hullabaloo, as well as some of the latest breaking stories of the day. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Take care.